So, Jason, Steve, I am so grateful that we could just come together and like chat about life, about this area, about, being nano and, just being fathers too. I mean, we all have kids. I'd love to dive into being nano here in a bit because I know you guys have been doing some amazing stuff. But first, I know you guys have kids too. How are they doing?
They're good. I've got one son. He's 14. Just started
Okay.
high school a couple weeks ago, so he's a ninth grader. It's been a challenging time, but having a small business with a kid that's interested in science has been a lot of fun. So I've been able to talk to him about some of the stuff that we're doing, get him a little bit involved. My wife is also a chemist, so we're a
Awesome.
household of scientists and engineers. It's been good. It's certainly a time challenge.
Okay.
I've been fortunate I was able to help coach his junior high baseball team,
Oh, that's awesome.
which gave a really good opportunity to both have a time away from work for me, but also to spend some time with him. But it's been good. I think it gives working all the time on your own business. They also see and understand and appreciate hard work and what it can mean. So I'm glad that he is the age that he is and he can understand a little bit about what we're doing.
That's really awesome. I love that you mentioned that you're coaching his team. I do the same with my son in soccer. It gives me time just to be with him. And then my daughter, she's got other crazy stuff she likes me to do with her
Yeah.
around the house and outside and everywhere else. But I do love that. Jason, you have kids too, but they're a little bit older, right?
Yeah, so I have one who's out of high school. He is super gifted and a really good artist.
Oh, cool.
And I think that gene must have skipped me because he gets it from my side, my mother, and probably some from his mother as well. So unfortunately, I didn't get that gene.
What type of art is he into?
Uh, you name it, and all kinds. So he does things that he makes costumes. He's really good at drawing. He does online art stuff that I really can't even comprehend how they do this. But with the iPad and a pen, he can make some really creative, like anime, I guess is the correct
Okay.
term now. I'm pretty old, so I don't keep up with all that. But yeah, he's real gifted in that way. And then my younger one it will be a senior in high school, and is in Future Farmers of America, and is really big into uh, animals and farming and all that goes with that. And that's pretty important in this area.
That's really cool. So it sounds like your kids may be working for the company soon, right?
We'll see. They not quite ready for that yet, but maybe an internship could be in the future.
That's cool. But yeah, I know, Steve, you were telling me earlier too that one of the ways you guys funded the company, the idea actually came through your son, right? Like you guys were on a
Yeah.
dino dig?
So we originally started the company through friends and family. So
Okay.
we did have a small group of people give us money or invest in us to help get started. And early on, that was it was a little creative, I guess, but we always explored and tried to understand, is there a better way to do it? Is there another way we could fund this, or what could we do? And I had the good fortune a few years ago. My son and I went to South Dakota on a dinosaur dig. And as you're digging up the fossils, if it's a common fossil, you're allowed to take them home for free. So we came back
Oh,
with a
cool.
bag of really cool fossils, pterodon or Edmontosaurus, Thescelosaurus, some other Stegosaurus bones, some Triceratops bones even. But he was really excited. He found a Tyrannosaurus Rex tooth.
Wow.
And that, unfortunately, was not considered a common fossil. So you don't get to take that one home for free. You have to purchase that one. And at the end of the day, we were trying to get an idea how much it might cost, and the gentleman that was running the dig said it's probably going to be about $2,000. And I was like,
Oh my
well,
gosh.
I'm not bringing that one home. And then on the flight home from the trip, he said, Dad, can we do a GoFundMe page?
Okay.
And we thought about it, and I was like, yeah, you could probably do that, but you need to make sure you tell people what you're going to do with it.
Yeah.
Why are they giving you money? They're not going to give you money just so you can have a tooth. And he thought, well, I could talk about what we did. I could talk about my interest in science, and maybe I could get other people interested in science and learn and get involved. And I said, that sounds like a really good idea. And he was able to start the GoFundMe page, and he got enough money to where he was able to get the tooth.
That's
And
amazing.
that put a seed in us. And it was like, well, why can't we do that for our company? And well, the answer was at that time because it wasn't quite legal yet. And there were some pretty tight restrictions on how you could do that. But it was something that we kept it interested in. And as the regulations changed, it became a real opportunity to do crowdfunding.
Wow.
And we were introduced to one of the portals that we've used, Net Capital, and we decided that we wanted to try. And we started a campaign in 2021, and we were actually able to raise over $1 million
It's amazing.
for our company, and we were the first North Carolina company to raise $1 million. So it was a really fun experience. We learned a lot. You get a lot more out of it than just money. You get a lot of help from the community, and it really feels like a community when they invest, because they reach out and they want to be a part of who you are and what you're doing. But yeah, it all came from the sort of the GoFundMe idea.
It's amazing. I love how an interaction with your son on a neat trip triggered the whole idea that became the funding arm for you guys' company over the past couple of years. I track obviously a lot of the investment crowdfunding raises that happen in the state. I remember, as you're talking, I remember reflecting back onto my entry point into, we'll say, more North Carolina companies that done investment crowdfunding, and more the naysayers out there that said, oh, investment crowdfunding is just for breweries, it's just for restaurants. And hearing a nanotech company, which most people, they've heard the word, but they probably don't know what it means, accomplish such a large raise in our backyard from a base of crowd investors that people typically wouldn't say know what they're investing in. Why do you think people resonated with it? Is it because you guys have tech that's so game changing, or like what have most crowd investors told you? Where have they been?
I think what we've been able to do pretty well is to take the real complexity of what we do and create it and tell it as a story.
Okay.
And
So what does BNNano do? Maybe that'll help for.
fundamentally, if you think back to a time where I think everybody realizes that in order to build the pyramids, people had to put straw in the clay to make the brick strong enough to make the pyramid. We make a really high-tech straw that goes into other materials,
Okay.
high-tech clays, if you will. We can put it into aluminum to make aluminum stronger. We can put it into ceramics. We can put it into other things like plastics and other materials. So we make things that exist better. And we believe that we can take things that have been cast aside or taken for granted and make them cutting-edge materials again. Like, not too many people think aluminum is a super material anymore, but we can make it that way.
What do you mean by that?
If we add our material to aluminum, we can double the strength.
Really?
So if we can double the strength of aluminum, imagine what you can do to a spaceship. How much lighter you can make it, how much easier you can to launch it, how much more payload you can carry. If we can take something as simple as polyester and we can make it perform like Kevlar, now we have a super material out of something that's very common. And we're in an old textile mill in Burlington, North Carolina that used to make hosiery, made polyesters. They don't do that anymore because there's not enough value in polyester. So all of that industry has left North Carolina. It's essentially left the United States. If we can bring value back to something like polyester, we could turn the lights back on in that factory. And we could not only grow a technology, but we could begin to grow communities again that have lost industries over the past few years.
It seems like that'd be really interesting for Burlington. It's kind of like an emerging manufacturing. Is that part of the company's mission, officially or unofficially, or?
Yeah, I would say that bringing back manufacturing is crucial for the United States, and it's also crucial for towns and cities to revitalize and get back into being producers and makers, and the challenges and the inherent innovation that comes with those activities. So if you think about it, there used to be a lot of people who could sew, create stuff, and solve things and put things together and really innovate. As we've moved manufacturing out, those challenges and the way people think daily has been lost. And no longer are we challenged day to day with those kinds of problems in manufacturing, and therefore shapes our brains to think in those ways. We hope to be able to bring that back, and for me it's really fulfilling to be able to to do both of those things, bring it back, but also to have that challenge every day and really grow your mind and how you think and how you do things, so that we can continue to be innovative, so that we can continue to have new things that really are effective in how we live.
You know, I just find it fascinating, Jason, too, because like my son has a engineering mindset to him. I don't know if he'll be an engineer or not, but you know, being able to interact with founders that are creating really cool stuff that kind of like matches his proclivity really resonates with me. So when you guys were showing me like the powders that you have over here, that you know, you've got what's it called, nanobarb?
Yep. The
Nanobar powder. I mean, that was one of the original reasons I invested in the company when you guys did your first raise. Was it seemed like it had all these applications, but I couldn't quite put it into context yet for me.
Yeah.
But being able to like introduce my son even to the type of stuff that you guys are doing is just incredible.
And what we did was a little bit different as well. So if you look at, I would say, the nano technology historically,
Okay.
it's typically come from laboratories. It's come from people that have been focused on research and development. They have been more focused on making the perfect material.
So we're not actually using it in like a
Exactly.
spaceship or using
It's
it
just
in
something that might maybe one day may be able to do something cool.
I'm guilty of that. When I was in college, I was one of those people trying to electrospin nanomaterials.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
It was like super.
Yeah. But what we did in our background, Jason and I started working together right around the year 2000 on companies that were developing products out of new materials and new
Okay.
things. And that's a challenge. And we would often be told by people trying to sell us things, if you buy our stuff, we'll make all your problems go away. It's the greatest thing ever and it'll work. And ultimately it doesn't, because they didn't have the understanding or the experience of how to actually use something. So when we started the company, we thought, well, the only way we will do this is if we can create a nanomaterial that somebody can actually use. And that was our focus. And that's why we came up with what we call the nanobarb. Over the years, we've come up with a lot of different terms for it. What is it? How do you classify it? We call it, it's more like an engineering material. And what we mean by that is someone who doesn't necessarily know anything about nanotechnology can add it to whatever they're making and it will improve what they have. And that was our goal all along. We didn't necessarily need to have somebody say, hey, we're using nanomaterials, that's awesome. We just wanted them to be able to say, whatever you are supplying us makes our product so much better. It enables new things and it really can change the world. And that's been our focus. So we are really more engineering than science, though everything that we do is rooted very deeply in science.
And that makes a lot of sense to me as somebody studied that field too. I mean, I know you guys have some materials up here, but maybe too showing people kind of what you mean by the nanobarb and how that actually works would be beneficial.
Sure. So the nanobarb at the nanoscale looks a lot like this piece of rock candy. There's a tube, which in this case is the stick, and then it has these nanocrystals grown on it. And that is the core of our technology. The nanobarb, or the nanotube itself, is super strong, much stronger than steel, much stiffer than steel, has incredible thermal conductivity. But when you add it to materials, a lot like a straw, which Steve has.
Yeah, so if you just look at them side by side, you can see that they're different.
Yeah.
And this is the science interpretation of what a nanotube, what a nanomaterial should look like to service the real world. This is our interpretation of what it's going to take to actually make it work.
Because it could actually stick together
Yeah.
with materials kind of like rebar and concrete. I
Exactly.
guess. That makes a lot of sense. So I mean, there's like countless applications for this that you guys showed. Where are you getting the most traction from people that are interested in like commercial applications, actual industry?
There's two, I would say, two fundamental ways that you use our material to make things better.
Okay.
The first way is it can make things stronger. And if you can make it stronger, you can make it lighter. The military has a term, SWAP, size, weight, and power. So everything they want to do, they want to make it smaller, and they want to make it stronger, and they want to make it lighter. So fundamentally, we can add this material, we can add this powder to things like polymers, plastics, metals, ceramics, to make them stronger so that they can make something lighter, and they can make it smaller. The other thing, as Jason just mentioned, is what we have moves heat very quickly. So it can also be used to make things like your cell phone be cooler.
Really?
Everybody knows if you're watching a video, if you're talking on the phone a lot, when you have it in your hand, it produces a tremendous amount of heat.
Mine does it every single day.
And that's bad. The
Yeah, it's
hotter it
terrible.
gets, the shorter it's going to live. So if you can move that heat more efficiently, then you can create a better product. And our material does that as well.
So this has huge applications in computing too, and
Computing, lasers.
I didn't even think of that.
Communication.
And I didn't even think about that when I first invested. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So so just a little brainstorming here. How would we get this message out to like Elon and SpaceX?
It's a good question. It's a good question, right? I mean, we've had.
I mean, like I studied aerospace in school, so
Yeah.
part of this is personal, part of
Sure.
this is professional. But I mean, like I'm just thinking of
The challenge with really cool companies like that,
Yeah.
and also when you get into parts of the government, when you meet people, they never tell you what they do, and you never get their contact information.
Mhm.
So a lot of times you might get a business card that has their name, or they may not even tell you who they are. So the who I am and what I do in the org chart is almost like intellectual property.
got it.
So there is a bit of a challenge. So you got to find the back doors. And we've been blessed. I think we have worked at some pretty amazing companies. We have some pretty amazing contacts. And as those people have left and gone other places, we're one or two people removed from a lot of the influentials, if not the decision makers in some of these companies. And so that's what we do. We kind of go the back way and the in way. And then we also have some phenomenal advisors working for us that can help knock down barriers and get introductions that we otherwise could not have for ourselves. And interestingly enough, a lot of these contacts also come directly from the crowd.
That's cool.
So as we've crowdfunded, we've also been crowd influenced, if you will.
I was about to ask how you found most of those connections, if they came through crowd or just mutual interests, but it sounds like you guys have just been active at reaching out to people.
Yeah, so there's the advisors that we have and the initial investors that we have, which help a lot. The crowd that helps a lot, but then there's also the traditional methods of networking through
Yeah.
LinkedIn or Twitter or social media, what have you.
That's cool. If you had to reflect back on the past, say like 3 or 4 years, like what is there anything, speaking to founders, is there anything that you would do differently? Would be advice to other founders that are out there?
That's a tough question. And it's hard too, because sometimes you lose sight of what you do, and you'll feel often that we just wasted the last 6 months. But when you talk to people and you explain to them what you've done, it turns out that you've really done a pretty good job.
So
And
stay true to the course.
yeah,
is
you
what
stay
you're
true to the
saying.
course. I think we stayed true to the fail often, but fail quickly. We haven't always made the right decisions, but when we've made the wrong decisions, we've been able to learn from them and move on. I think we underestimated the power of and the strength of social media, especially getting into crowdfunding. We stayed under the radar for really the first 3 or 4 years. We wanted to make sure that we could really do what we said we could do, and we didn't do a very good job of telling people who we are. And as engineers and scientists, we may not know the best way to tell people who we are. So for me, I think one of the things that we probably should have done is started a bit more aggressive, just social media, get the word out campaign. And I think what that would have done is it would have helped us locally more. And we have had a challenge getting people in North Carolina, the government of North Carolina, the business community of North Carolina interested in a small company because they don't really know who we are.
Got it. Do you think that's interesting too, like this region is just growing like crazy. It feels like everybody in the world's moving here, which to some degree may be true. But like, do you feel like the ecosystem as a whole here it can be like a super supportive area for nanotech company and emerging manufacturing, or?
Yeah, so it's interesting, we engage a lot at the Joint School for Nanoscience and Nanoengineering in Greensboro, and that's been
Okay.
a great resource for us. The professors there and also the equipment and students that have done some work for us. So I would say that has been one of the keys to why we've been able to move as fast as we've had. Simply because of that resource being there enables us not to have to find other equipment or characterization tools or what have you, which may be scattered either throughout the state or through the region to get things done. So that's been a big resource for us. And even, like I said, the students there, some of have done work for us have been very helpful.
And we actually hired our first hire outside of the family, if you will. A lot of people that we had worked together with over the years was a student that we had worked with.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, and that's part of also what we believe in. We believe in the technology. We believe in promoting STEM. We believe in trying to engage students really at every level. So that's part of the core of what we believe. But we've also seen the changes over the last 2 or 3 years in North Carolina in general. There does seem to be interest in things outside of biotech or pharma, or some software or some of the video game developing. There seems to be a new group of people coming in that are interested in technology and even interested in manufacturing. If you look at what's happening in the Greensboro area, some of the aerospace activities, some of the automotive activities, there's a big military presence here as well. So we think that we are perfectly positioned, not only in North Carolina, but where we are in Burlington, to really grow and impact the community.
That's got to be super exciting for not only locals, but people just hearing about that, we'll call it convergence, the different industries, and y'all being part of that. What does the future world look like, in your opinion, for like this region? Like what makes an ideal community for y'all that you want to build a company in?
For me, I think it starts with a support network, which the town of Burlington and the business people of Burlington have been absolutely fabulous and supportive of us, and it's just incredible how they've accepted us and helped us along the way on this. That was a real key part of our start. But then, as you see manufacturing coming back, like I said, you start to see people with challenges in their day-to-day lives that are unique and different, and forces that innovation to come about. Like I said, it creates and shapes people in a way that's beneficial for us all.
And I think the diversity of the area, the diversity of ideas with the different universities being focused on different things, being an area where we're getting people from all over the world coming in here. So you have the diversity of ideas, the diversity of cultures, helps us to see problems from different directions. It helps us to make contacts with people that can branch off our opportunities. So just having the ability to meet with people that are from all different areas and all different stages of their careers, if it's right out of school to somebody who's a seasoned executive. And and the other thing is understanding that no matter how technical we are, it's still about the relationships that we have with people. And just having the opportunity to have this many people with this diverse of a background, this willing to help, has been pretty incredible.
So does it help that when you bring people to Burlington, that you also have a community-owned brewery and restaurant to take them to? Or is
It does help. It helps quite a bit. So yeah, absolutely. So next time you're there, we'll definitely have to have a beer there.
Love that, especially after Dottie's born.
Yeah.
So Steve and Jason, I'm really curious. Founder why stories are always really interesting to me, like how it came together, why you did it. So what is y'all's how? What is y'all's why?
So we started working together probably right around 2000. We were both process engineers, and we were at the beginning of our career. So we were the guys that were working 14, 16-hour days, long days and nights, having to get things done. And we loved what we did. We're passionate about material science, but part of the working together, where I was like, damn it, one day we got to figure out our own company. How can we do this? And then over the years, we went different companies at times, but we always lived near each other. So we always have lunch. Our kids swam on the same neighborhood swim team, so we'd hang out at swim meets talking. I eventually went back to the company. We worked back together, and then it was lunches, walks around the parking lot. How are we going to do this? Are we really going to do it? And kicking back ideas back and forth together, shooting holes in each other's ideas.
Yeah.
Just a back and forth. And then I think Jason came with some pretty cool things he found.
Yeah, so we started to see a lot of information popping up about carbon nanotubes, and the tremendous value that they could add, and they started adding them to like golf clubs and sporting goods equipment, But at that time, the prices were still pretty high for it, so it was limited in terms of application. So Steve and I started talking about carbon nanotubes, and about the same time frame, all of a sudden, large companies started putting on large amounts of capacity for carbon nanotubes. But as had researched carbon nanotubes, we came across boron nitride nanotubes, which is a different form, very similar but different atoms that form it, with some better and unique properties. But all the literature on boron nitride nanotubes says, oh, it's this great thing. It can do these things better than carbon nanotubes, but nobody has been able to produce, more than tenths of a gram at any given time, and it was very expensive as a result. And so Steve and I were like, oh,
Challenge accepted.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
right up our
Process
alley.
engineers,
Yeah.
you got it down.
We were doing tertiary, quaternary systems, which 4 or 5 different things put together at once. It had to be put together perfectly, and we're like, just boron and nitrogen?
Yeah.
How hard can that be?
Yeah.
So
They've only been trying to crack it since what, the 90s?
yeah, and you had NASA trying to do it, and all these other groups with millions and millions of dollars, but we naively thought maybe we can. And I think we spent, I don't know, 6 months coming up with different ideas and shooting holes in it. And we got to the point where we thought we figured out how we might be able to make it. And we got to the point where we ran out of ideas not to do it.
Huh.
And it was,
Got to do it.
and then we hit a point where, well, it's now or never.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a whole bunch of events happened, which almost made the perfect storm to start the company. And we rolled the dice.
So you guys almost had that same common theme I hear from founders, which is the risk of not doing it is almost greater than the risk of, yeah.
And then the benefits of doing it go well beyond just starting the company, right? So we have a group of people that have worked together, that we know each other, we trust each other, we're all on the same page, we're all going in the same direction. You don't have any of the problems you hear in the corporate world of big companies. We're all working together to achieve the same goal. We all know we're working hard. We all know we'll be rewarded. And we do things every day that have never been done before, which is really cool.
That is really cool. And you guys were telling me too before we started talking today that this right here, this powder, is the largest grouping of nanobarbs that's ever been produced in the world in one place.
Yep.
And it
That's-
is for a customer. That's
that's
the other
for
cool thing.
customers.
And this is not the whole amount. I couldn't convince the guys in the laboratory to give me everything, just in case. So they said, just take some, don't take it all, because it will be the biggest shipment that we've made. It is for a customer. We're quite excited about that.
Can I hold a container?
Absolutely.
I want to feel famous here. So you've seen this Will McGuire hold a container.
Yeah,
First time ever.
absolutely.
So is that, my understanding, I know it's probably hard for people to see and kind of hard to comprehend too, maybe if somebody doesn't have like an engineering mindset, but it seems almost impossible something that small can have such a large impact. I mean, my understanding of it is kind of like rebar and concrete.
Yep.
Yeah.
So just like rebar and concrete makes it possible to build skyscrapers, because literally without it, the concrete would just collapse. I can understand that rebar is huge, compared to nanoparticle. Is that what gives it all the different properties, from like radioactive protection to greater conductivity? Is it just because it's so small that when it's injected into materials like aluminum and polymers, it just gives it gives those properties, whole different properties?
So if we could make the nanotube at macro scale,
Okay,
it would still have those properties.
interesting. Okay,
The nanotube itself is almost a perfect crystal.
okay,
And when you have perfect crystals, then they have extremely unique properties. High strength, high thermal conductivity. But then what does change at the nanoscale is the interactions. The interactions between materials are very different at that scale compared to even at micro scale. And it's getting to understand and know the physics and chemistry of those interactions, which makes it so that we can transfer those nanoscale properties up into macro materials.
that's amazing.
And the cool thing, people hear nano a lot, but they may not grasp what that actually means.
Oh, yeah.
So if you could imagine that the Earth was 1 meter in diameter,
Okay.
and you put a soccer ball next to the Earth,
Okay.
that soccer ball is 1 nanometer.
Wow.
So we're making things that are roughly 20 to 40 nanometers wide. So it is 20 to 40 soccer balls next to the width of the Earth, and we're actually controlling, engineering, and shaping and manipulating those things. And that material is thousands of soccer balls long and only a few soccer balls wide if you compare it to that way. So it's really, I think it's incredible when you think of what we're actually doing at that scale. And it's amazing that when you put enough of those together that you can see them. Because if
Yeah.
you can imagine, you couldn't see one tube.
No, definitely not.
But the amount of nanotubes in this pile is probably 100 quadrillion.
Yeah, something like that.
So which is, I don't even know, what is that, 17 zeros or something like that?
Yep.
And,
So there's a lot of them here.
and you guys were telling me how that powder too, you can make what, roughly like, how many pounds of aluminum can it be injected into?
So that can be used for anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000 pounds of aluminum.
That's amazing, because then
And that
you're
replaces 4 to 8,000 pounds of aluminum.
so it's roughly like halving the amount of, or cutting 50% of the amount of aluminum you'd have to
Exactly.
use. But then strengthening wise too, my understanding is that instead of using like steel in a car or another material, you could almost replace it with something that's considered a commodity like aluminum.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That would really help out in my car I won't mention on video that has this big giant thing.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm trying to drive, that sometimes I'm almost missing people while I'm driving that could like make that, you know, smaller. I could see
Yeah,
some
absolutely.
broad applications in that. You guys gave me this, I didn't even realize how impactful you guys' company was until, I think, Jason, you may have painted the analogy, or Steve, you may have done it, but it's every single age of innovation has always been preceded by a materials age. So if we think of like the steel age, that brought skyscrapers. If we think of what silicon did, it brought us these devices that we can communicate on, that we can record on, that we can talk to other people on. So from what you told me earlier, the scientific community's been chasing this since the 90s. They've known what it can do, this game changing. And this is the first time in human history that we're going to start to be able to actually explore what these can do on a commercial scale, right?
That's exactly right.
That to me is just, it gives me like chills. Like I got goosebumps coming up.
Yeah.
Seriously on my arm right now, because what can we innovate off of that? I mean, look how much just those other ages did. I can't even begin to imagine the applications that are really cool.
Just two quick things. If you think
Yeah.
about it, one of the things that's in the news that people are talking about is this thing called the Artemis program with NASA. So NASA
Okay.
wants to go back to the moon. They want to go back to the moon to build a base so that we can go to Mars.
My son wants to actually go on that. He's
So for your son to be able to do
he's
it,
9, but he wants to
yeah, he has to be protected from radiation.
Yeah, biggest problem in space.
So right now there isn't a really good way to protect people, equipment from radiation. And one of the things that boron does well is absorbs neutron radiation. This contains
interesting.
boron, but if we can turn it into a plastic or to a textile, which you could turn into a spacesuit or a tent or some type of structure, you could begin to create materials that can protect humans and even equipment in space so that we can stay on the moon for a long period of time so that we can go to Mars.
That's amazing.
Another thing that's in the news all the time, especially in North Carolina, unfortunately, is water is contaminated by these things that are called forever chemicals.
Okay.
PFAS,
Yeah.
PFAS. Right now, there's not a really good way to take that contaminant out of water. We've been able to show, and there's been other people that have been able to prove that you can use this material to remove those contaminants, those chemicals from drinking water.
Yeah.
So it's harder to imagine something that could have a bigger impact and really could change the world than if you could create clean water.
Yeah, I mean, that affects so many,
Everyone.
It affects everyone.
Yeah.
It seems like, if anything, people be diving in to just try to figure out the intricacies to make it work at scale, because that's such a huge problem, especially in our state.
And the problem has been that there just has not been enough for people to do these different things. And now there is. We can make enough. We can make enough to do the work ourselves. We can make enough to have strategic partners that can do the work for us. And we can make enough to sell to people to do things that we haven't even yet imagined.
It's absolutely incredible. And so you guys have also decided, I know you did your first, you've raised privately, but you also raised $1 million from the crowd, as you said earlier. You guys are going right back to the crowd again. Why is that?
Well, with a couple of reasons. One is we've got more demand now than we've ever had, and that's challenging our production capacity. So we're going to need to do some expansion, but also we have products that we need to launch and get it and sell. So we need a sales force to go out and help people understand that this stuff is available. And you know, the more we can drive awareness, the more people are willing to work with the material and work with us to bring it to real fruition.
And we believe in the crowd, going back to our roots with the friends and the family. And then when we started the crowdfunding, the value that you get from the crowd is much more than just an investment. We met you through the crowdfunding. We've met a number of people that we talk to almost daily, that we work with daily. We've had investors through our previous campaign introduce us to some of potentially the biggest customers that we have. So it's been a remarkable community to work with. For us, it just also makes sense. It will allow us to control the direction of our company. It will allow us to still be influential on the culture of our company. We can grow in a way where we can still influence and not have some of the challenges that some of the other traditional ways of having capital injected into your company will push you or prod you into other ways. So we believe in it, but we also believe that we want to reward as many people as possible as we grow. So as we grow, we want people to grow with us. We want them to be part of the family, to be part of the team. And the crowdfunding, it's really interesting. It's really compelling. It's really cool when you think of the numbers. We raised $1 million, and I think we had around a little over 2,000 investments. So from an average standpoint, you know, the average investment is pretty small, but it's a lot of people putting money in. And I just think it's a really powerful, really compelling, and really interesting thing to do.
That's amazing, and I'm glad to see that the connections to the crowd have been doing so well to help grow the company. I mean, you mentioned Salesforce. It seems like you got this massive democratized Salesforce that hasn't, you know, you're just scratching the surface on that you're able to leverage. And I'm sure my attorneys and our attorneys would probably love us to say that, you know, obviously investing in early stage companies
It's highly risky. Yeah.
Most of them fail, but the opportunity to be like an investor in a company that's driving such innovation, even if the investment failed, it's like you got to be part of helping bring that creation or that new.
And we've taken the care and the time for every investor that has reached out to us. We've answered them. We've started a conversation with them because it is about relationships. And you never know. It might be the person that put in $100 into your company. They may know someone that could fundamentally change everything. And we appreciate that. And we've taken the time to make sure that they know that we appreciate them and that they can contribute to the success of the company, much more so than just by, you know, being an investor.
And that's such a true statement. I mean, we've seen that across multiple companies in the past too that have leveraged the crowd for it, and the type of relationship that gets built there. And like, who cares if it's $100 check or $1 million check? Like, how can we go grow the company together? How can we go operate against our vision, mission, value? Seems to be like the ethos.
Absolutely.
Which is perfectly aligned with what y'all are building.
Definitely.
Well, Jason, Steve, love this time together. We don't get enough time to just get away and talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's nice to be able to do this. I'm serious. Next time we get around, we'll definitely like go hit up Burlington.
Absolutely.
Have
Yeah.
a beer together.
Sure. Sounds good.
Maybe you give me a tour of the facility. I know some
maybe
stuff is
you can see the
confidential,
curtains.
but- Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it, Will. Thank you very much.